Hello, it's another episode of Away and Abroad, book edition. I had a little hiatus, had my Portland, Oregon trip in there since last time, so I'm excited to catch you up on all of that. But first, I wanted to share a couple books that I've been reading from this past quarter. I set my goal for 50 books this year, and I'm 5 ahead at this time, which I'm kind of surprised because I feel like summer I usually end up being right on track, and then it kind of dips a little bit because summer is just so busy, and granted it's still kind of beginning, but anyway, I'm really pleased with how on track I'm going so far. And they've been really good books too, for the most part. We'll get into it. Okay, so I think where I left off with the last book chat was Cobalt Red, and I didn't quite finish that one, but it was still a great book to kind of get a taste to understand that aspect of the supply chain and world, just socioeconomic and humanities. So I do try to read more books like that, and that was a great one to add to the collection for this year. So the book I read after that was Anthropologists by Aysegül Savas. This one, to be fair, I listened to, and I was just refreshing my Goodreads to remember what I wrote about it. And I said that I listened to it going to bed, and I remember like restarting it many, many times. So I think that I read the whole thing or listened to the whole thing. I think I still would recommend it. It was like a quick listen, and it was a nice book about like thought-provoking, like life philosophies, nothing too deep. I think it was about another couple who's traveling, and it was similar to the book Perfection, which I really loved. That was set in Berlin. I think I did a little cover about it, but that one is by Latronico Vincenzo. That one I really, really loved. So this is like same energy, not same story, but similar story, different font. Next, I read Bread of Angels by Patti Smith. I got this last fall, I believe, when I saw her live at St. Kate's here in Minnesota. And so this book has been on my shelf for quite a few months, and I was like, you need to read this because you paid for it, and I just wanted to read it. So yeah, I was really surprised because I know this isn't fair to her and her writing sense, but I've just not felt as gripped by her writing since Just Kids. And this one, I don't think is like another like masterpiece, but it was really good and surprising in a lot of ways. I didn't realize she had had so much loss. I knew her husband passed away, then shortly after her brother passed away, and Robert Mapplethorpe, of course, they were friends together and lived in the Chelsea Hotel. So I knew some of the lore of New York, the New York scene. But I just didn't realize, like, she just went into more detail about her life on the road as a singer, and then falling in love and having kids and kind of leaving it all. Like, I wonder, it sounds like she could have been more famous than she is if she had kind of ridden the wave a bit longer in the start of her early career. But it's cool to see that like you have the right to prioritize anything in your life, no matter what, and kind of nothing is worth it, like if you're not in it, you know. And I don't know if she regrets it or not, but like that was what she did. So I don't think she did regret it. It doesn't sound like. So I really felt for her. And there are some like kind of turns at the end that again were just kind of unexpected. So you'll learn a little bit more about Patti, and her writing is really good. It was a little slow at the beginning, but then it really picked up, and I felt like, okay, I'm into it. So I think it was a 4-star for me. Strangers by Belle Burden. Okay, I'm probably going to talk about it a lot more than I liked it. So basically, I think there are 3 things that I didn't like, and let me see if I have notes about it. So Belle Burden is a descendant of Vanderbilt and the Paley family in New York. So that is New York royalty, big money, a lot of wealth. And it's interesting because she talks about like it seems like in her interviews and stuff, she wants the moral of the story to be women should take care of their own money and have their own money, never stop working. And I agree with all of that. But it is interesting to take financial advice from someone who started off in life in a very privileged position. And it's interesting that she didn't really seem that protective of her assets and her resources against her husband. And not that she needed to be on the defensive, but she kind of recounts like time after time that he kind of took advantage. Like you could argue he took advantage of her money, and then it was like always for the sake of the family. And he worked a lot too, and he made a ton of money. But I'm like, that's interesting, because if you're not personally contributing to your funds, like I think these people just never think their money will run out, and maybe it won't because they just have so much. But that part was interesting, that she didn't have a lot of skepticism towards him. And I felt like that was even more the moral of the story than just have your own autonomy even within a marriage. I was a little annoyed by how much she was like simping for him even after the divorce, because he left very abruptly. I think this is like part of the synopsis of the whole book. Like this is common knowledge, but he left super abruptly in the middle of the pandemic. And multiple times after that they saw each other, she would be like, oh, he was just so attractive and like this and that. And I'm like, girl, like, stop. You look so pathetic for just like, you gotta just, I don't know why that just never, it took her a long time to get over his looks. And I was like, look, I get it. We've all been there. But at a certain point, when someone like betrays you and like abandons you, I think you just like have to put on some more logic goggles and logic brain. But that didn't kick in for her for a while. So it just felt like that's embarrassing for her, because he did not care about her. Like he did not care. And the other part that he didn't care about was actually rearing the children, because she would say, you know, when they broke up and he would get his own apartment, she's like, this 2-bedroom apartment is not big enough for the kids to come stay with him. And she's just like all confused. And I'm like, he doesn't want weekends with the kids. Like he doesn't want it at all. And so yeah, that was interesting that it just like took her a while, it sounded like, for her to process, you know, that they are approaching even a divorce in a very different way. And I think it's because they probably approached life and living together in a very different way, where it's like, did you see him like really participating in the kids' lives before? Because if you didn't, then he likely wouldn't after a marriage, you know, things like that, where I'm like, why are we surprised? So yeah, I think those were my main takeaways. It was interesting to read about like New York and things. Like I've definitely met these kinds of people, not intimately for sure, but just knowing of them and knowing that's like the lifestyle to go to Martha's Vineyard or the Cape or the Hamptons for weekend getaways in the summer. Like that's a very normal thing for New Yorkers to get out in the summer, get out of the city. So yeah, so that's kind of it on that one. Okay, the next one that I really loved, might be a top for this year, we'll see, is Mother Mary Comes to Me by Arundhati Roy. And I didn't realize, like, I didn't know that much about her. She also wrote The God of Small Things, I believe, and one other one that's pretty well known, which are next on my list now. But this was more of her memoir and her relationship with her mother, which was tumultuous. And I was like, relatable. So it was really sad at times, but like the writing, of course, was so good. I thought this quote was really interesting. As it turns out, the day Mommy and Daddy met was the day Baby decided she must fly away, although it would take a while to make the arrangements. I was like, oh, yeah. Yep. And then, let's see, our mother was old and very sick, but so were the rocks that weighed down our souls. They sometimes made it impossible for us to do the right thing or to even know what the right thing was. And then this quote about her mom: I wanted to hug her and reassure her that everything would be okay, but you can't hug a porcupine even over the phone. So it was just like a very complicated relationship she had with her mother, and her mother was a teacher at a school, or kind of ran this school, and I don't know if everyone like loved her, but she was very like, she poured her life into this. And the author talks about how she felt like she was one of 3 siblings instead of just her and her brother. They considered their school, the other sibling that was the favorite. So yeah, that one I really, really enjoyed and recommend. It was just like about travel and art and movement and just kind of profound things in life. So 5 stars for me. And then the most recent book that I finished on the plane from Oregon to Minneapolis was Heart the Lover by Lily King. And I couldn't remember if I liked Lily or not. I think her books were like a solid like 3.75 for me. It wasn't like quite a 4, but like not a 3. Like I liked her enough to read a couple of them or to consider it. And I did really like this one. I haven't rated it yet, actually. So I wish I could do half stars on Goodreads, because that's probably what I would say. But I really enjoyed it. It was a perfect like beach read or just vacation read, very light, very quick. But yeah, the first part of it, there's like 3 sections, and the first part made me so nostalgic for like college years, like the college years I never had, but just sound idyllic and like fun and chaotic. Certainly not a perfect time for everyone, but just in the sense of like your lives are kind of intertwined with a lot of your friends and college students. The characters lived in a house with like 8 other people, and you know, some people were like sleeping on the couch, or sometimes they'd like hook up with each other, or like, you know, become partners with each other, and tangled webs. Like, yeah, there was like the moral of the story, or the gist of the story, was that there were 2 people dating, and then they broke up, and then one dated the friend. So yeah, it just, I don't know, it was sort of like, yeah, then one was like an au pair in Paris with the main girl, and then she wanted to like live there, but then her boyfriend abandoned her, and yeah, not to give everything away, but then there's like kind of a serious twist in the middle and then the end. And that's just sort of like life too, you know, where it's just like, yeah, life gets serious, life gets difficult. And yeah, so it was pretty good. It was a sweet book, like definitely bittersweet. So, and then the most recent read that I'm currently in right now is called The Warmth of Other Suns. And shout out to, I think, Saeed Jones from the Vibe Check podcast. I love getting their commentary on like current events from a Black perspective, and just they have so many great guests on. They have Channing Nicholas on to do astrology. They have other authors. Today I just listened to one about like trees and like Black people's relation to nature. And yeah, they just always have such great insights. So they mentioned this as like a great summer read, and it looks like a long one. It's on my Kindle, but I think it's basically 4 stories of individuals or their families who and their experience in the Great Migration. So, which I think the title is so fantastic for just the idea of like them seeking the warmth of another sun, you know, like being in another place from what they know that's like dangerous and not, I mean, fulfilling feels too light of a word, but like not a place that's not safe or conducive for growth or family safety and everything. So I can't remember exactly where they migrate like to, but definitely obviously from the South, so Mississippi or Alabama or Florida up to either New York, Chicago, California. So yeah, I'm excited to get into that one. It's going to be, I've heard about this book for a long time, and I think I read Cast by the same author. Yes, by Isabel Wilkerson. So yeah, that is this quarter's update. Let me know what books I should read next. I did want to find a book that was based in Oregon, but a lot of titles seem to be like spooky books and stuff, which I get. That's kind of the vibe there. But yeah, if you know of any, let me know. Speaking about books, I'll do a whole recap on my Oregon trip, but I'll just mention about Powell's bookstore that I finally got to go. It's been on the list forever, and I knew it would be such a cool destination spot. And it was huge. It was like definitely a lot bigger than I expected. It's probably the size of Strand bookstore, if not bigger. So lots of ups and downs, and just really extensive categories. I went to the rare books room, and that was really cool. I was like reading a book about typewriters and the invention of them, and yeah, that was actually pretty interesting because they talked about how one person's idea started it, and then either they sold the patent or sold the idea to the next person who kind of developed it and expanded. So yeah, it must be kind of bittersweet to like start something but not really be able to finish it or see the final product. But the contributions were obviously very transformative. I mean, we still use keyboards today, you know, so now that I think about it, it's like we still kind of use the essence of a typewriter now. So, which would be kind of cool to use a typewriter keyboard for work. That would be so obnoxious, but kind of fun. I can just imagine bringing that to the office. They'd give me my own office for sure then. That's the way I could get one. So yeah, I didn't end up getting any books there, partly because I had a couple loaded onto my Kindle, but part of me is just like, I just couldn't decide. There were just so many. One book that I saw was Anthony Bourdain's Book of Travel. So I checked that out on my Kindle too. They had a really good travel section. That's what I love. I'm like, oh yeah, I do love this, you know, this category. It's just like amazing when you're in a place that just has more. So that was so fun to see. But yeah, stay tuned for a full Oregon recap, and thanks for listening today.